Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Sandra Bramhoff. I work for Deutsche Börse, and I'm very pleased to be here today at the conference. And I will spend the next 20 minutes or so on some of the new requirements that will come with MiFID II in 2018. And I think as this is a software conference, I will mainly focus today on the testing requirements that will come applicable in 2018, as well as briefly touch the requirements for business clock synchronization. So just before we start, I would like to actually give you a very brief overview about the timeline for those ones of you that are not heavily involved in MiFID, just to have an idea. I think you might have heard that actually MiFID got postponed to January 2018, which I think is overall good news. And it will now, any time now, be officially done in the official journal. So we can expect that in the next few days, at least before the 3rd of July 2016. And I think what you should need to know just in terms of timeline is the Commission has been working on adopting some of the regulatory technical standards, to which we refer as RTSs, and in that sense level 2 requirements. They are the details of actually the level 1 requirements. And some of them have been adopted. The process will be that the Council and the Parliament will then have the time as well to approve them or not approve them. However, we expect at this point in time that they will actually be approved. What is also important to know is, and on what ESMA, the regulatory body in Paris, is currently working on is some of the details to which we refer as level 3 requirements. And one specific one is actually, for example, looking at business clocks synchronization. There has been a consultation that has been done end of this year and ended end of last year and ended in March, where they basically specify things or items that haven't been really dealt with in the level 2 requirements. So from a timing perspective, we expect those ones to be published not before the end of the year, but we expect certainly more consultations and discussions paper on those ones, and for the industry to basically get ready and implement and have the final sort of details to get ready and be compliant in 2018. Just one word on national implementation. Depending on which country you are based, the national competent authorities also need to basically transform and transpose the requirements of level 1, of level 2 into their national regulations. And that will also probably take some time. However, the deadline that is set for this is going to be the 3rd of July 2017, so next year. So this is just as a brief overview before we now basically go into the requirements. And the first one I would like to touch is testing. So big question, first of all, testing. Why do we need to have this under MiFID II? Why does it need to be specified? Well, I think the main reason for this is that the regulators want to ensure that algorithmic trading systems as well as trading algorithms cannot contribute or create disorderly trading conditions. That's actually the main purpose, and that they also do not behave in an unintended manner. This is why we have this as a section of RTS 6 and RTS 7. These are the respective requirements for trading venues as well as investment firms. There are, for you, if you're an investment firm, there are certain, I would say, as this depicted on this slide here, eight requirements that you should be aware of. So first of all, you need to basically set up testing methodologies. And these should include basically the performance and the design of the algorithmic trading system, the trading algorithm, the algorithmic trading strategies, as well as the allocation of sufficient resources, basically escalation procedures, record keeping and approval. And these testing methodologies, as I mentioned already, they should basically make sure that the algorithmic trading system, trading algorithm, and algorithmic trading strategies do not behave in an unintended manner. And also the operation of such systems basically should also be in alignment with the requirements that the investment firms have to actually fulfill under the directive. That also includes embedded risk management and compliant functionalities, control functionalities. And what also is basically very important is that they also comply with the rules of the venue that is basically being accessed. Yeah, I mentioned already the importance of that they do not contribute to disorderly trading conditions, and an important thing here as well is that in stressed market conditions that they can cope with those kind of conditions as well, and that in any kind of worst case scenarios they can be switched off. Further, I think what needs to be ensured is that further testing could also be done in terms of material updates or changes of the trading system or basically the venue accessed. So in a sense, investment firms really need to make sure that they adapt their testing technologies to the venue where they basically trading algorithms are deployed. So once these testing methodologies have been set up, what happens next? What's very important is MiFID requires that they basically need to be signed off by a senior management kind of person within the investment firm. I think that's very, very crucial that this has basically been done. And further, as a third point, what is also important, what will change, what most venues might do, but not sort of documented potentially to a large extent, is record keeping of these software changes. So MiFID really clearly basically requires that whoever makes this change, that will be documented, who approves this change, what kind of nature this change is, and also when this change was made. So I think that's very critical as well. The fourth item that investment firms really need to look into is conformance testing. So that will become now mandatory. So they need to basically do conformance testing with the venue of their algorithmic trading system and the trading algorithm. And that needs to be done always when the member accesses the venue, or when there is, for example, in terms of sponsored access arrangements, the venue is accessed for the first time, when there's a material update or change of the trading system, or also prior to initial deployment and update of any of the algorithmic trading systems, trading algorithms, or algorithmic trading strategies. And actually the same is similar for when actually the venue is being accessed via DMA arrangement. So again, we have here, if there's a change in the functionality of the DMA functionality of the provider, or prior again to the initial deployment of the algorithmic trading system, trading algorithm, or algorithmic trading strategies. I will go into a bit more of conformance testing a little bit later, but I just wanted to mention it here, as this is obviously part of the investment firm's obligations. Yeah, another point, what's very important is the investment firm needs to make sure that they have knowledgeable staff. And I'm sure this is obviously all the case already, but I think they now need to really define what skills these people need to have. So it needs to be written down, it needs to be protocoled. The staff needs to have obviously initial training, but also continuously ongoing training, which happens, you know, I presume already anyway these days, but it is really something where basically MiFID requires to tick the box. Also, obviously, towards the experience and the knowledge of the staff. So the technical knowledge is really important for those firms to have it. Another matter, I think, what is also important is that there need to be certain protocols in place for compliance and risk management staff, because they need to be able to basically have the authority and to check if any of the people that are basically responsible for algorithmic trading, and if there's any kind of a raise of disorderly trading conditions or suspicion of market abuse, that they can act up on those ones, and also if they have the sort of the technical knowledge and understanding in case any kind of automation alerts arise, that they can follow up on this information. Yeah, then the next item is controlled deployment of algorithms. So here the investment firms really need to maintain control over the trading algorithm that they deploy basically in the production environment, by being able to basically limit the number of financial instruments being traded, the price, the order and the value of the orders, the strategy positions, as well as the number of trading venues that are being accessed and where the orders are sent to. Then another point is post-deployment management. Here, this is something where an annual self-assessment basically needs to be done and be provided by the by the investment firm, and those include things like, for example, the level of automation of trading, the strategies and the risk involved in these strategies for their own basically risk management. Then also investment firms need to consider to what extent what they're focused on, the strategies are being focused on. Is that market making? Is that arbitrage? Is that long term? Is that short term? Is it directional, non-directional, etc.? And also I think the latency sensitivity is an important factor, as well as the connectivity solutions that the firms basically use. So in essence, basically what the investment firms need to make sure is they need to review and evaluate their algorithmic trading, trading systems and trading algorithms, the accountability, the governance, as well as the sign-off framework. And that always in relation to basically the complexity of their business that they have and that they basically deploy. Right, and then the last point is stress testing. So stress testing is also an important part, that they basically test the algorithmic trading systems and also sort of are capable of withstanding any kind of increased order flow. And there are some certain tests that have been proposed by ESMA. For example, they need to run high messaging tests and trade volume tests. I'm not going to go into the specifics here as it's very detailed. Yeah, so these are sort of the major things that I think investment firms already at this current point of time need to look into and make sure that they will be able to comply with those. Maybe just briefly, any questions on these ones? Or any comments or any feedback? Would you expect? Yes, please.
Could you say something on timing, on tracking time, synchronization among different systems to achieve microseconds post-trading transparency?
I will go to business clock synchronization in a minute. Yes, I will address that topic. If you just mind holding, so we just conclude the questions on testing. Thank you.
The question is about definition. What is algorithmic trading is? Because you described a lot of rules which, for example, investment firms should be compliant for. But in real life, there are a lot of situations when people use actually algorithms which are not maybe classified as an algorithm. For example, simple examples. Stop limit order. It's a kind of very simple algorithms which can be provided for users of any type. Retail clients may use some algorithms to automate their task. And how investment companies should be responsible according to all these rules for such type of things. What regulators think about it?
Yeah, very good question. I think the definition of a trading algorithm, probably everyone here in this room has some kind of an idea of what a trading algorithm is, and that might probably much differ from what your neighbor is thinking. And we have actually had some experience as well in Germany, because we had a law that was introduced before MiFID that was a little bit front-running MiFID, which was the German HFT Act, and there we had a definition, sort of more longer definition on a trading algorithm. Now, MiFID is looking at this, or they have a slight definition within the level 1 text, but also we expect more, or basically on the delegated acts, there will be more sort of detail on it. And I'm not sure if actually MiFID will go into more certain details in some kind of a guidelines afterwards. So I think then when it essentially really comes to looking at, the algorithm that you have deployed within your company, is this now going to be an algorithm or not? I think this is something that might be very difficult to do at one point, but I hope that we get some more guidance there from the regulators. Any additional questions?
Yeah. When we say high message volume, what is the definition? Is it high message volume for that firm in a particular given point of particular point of time, or say highest volume in a particular year?
The only indication that we have here from the regulator, at least from the RTSs at the moment, is That is basically using at least twice the highest volume of messages received sent by the firm over for the previous 6 months period. That's basically the reference to it.
Sorry, one more question on stress testing.
So is the expectation with the stress testing that the system would behave as normal in these stress periods, or is detecting an unusual load and gracefully exiting the market also an acceptable
No, it
test?
should be if there are stressed market conditions, then basically the intention is really that these systems behave normally, or they should supposed to behave normally.
It's capable of
Yeah.
behaving normally, if though on the day you may choose otherwise.
Exactly, yeah. Right, I think with regards to time, as we're a bit limited, I have to move on very quickly. Just basically as a summary, and also what the trading venues have to do. So the investment firms, so they need to obviously continue doing the testing of their algorithms in their own environment. Then the conformance testing, which I already addressed earlier on, basically that needs to be accessible to all members, prospect members as well. It needs to basically allow them to do that in a certain specific time period or in a scheduled period. And there are basically some very basic tests that include, for example, submission, modification, deletion of an order, or indication of interests. Then also the connectivity test, which basically includes things like cancel, don't cancel and disconnect, market data feed loss, these kind of things, or basically handling of a suspended trading instrument. And then also test reports that need to be produced by the trading venues, and basically say that they have done the conformance testing. So right now, then when basically going one step further, and that's basically what do trading venues then need to provide? And there are actually the RTS 25 in this case allows to either choose from a testing environment, basically a simulation environment that reproduces as realistically as possible the live production environment, and that basically also includes disorderly trading conditions, then also certain test scenarios, or test symbols in production, which need to be the test symbols maintained and basically set up by the respective trading venue. And I think looking at the current situation we're in right now, even under MiFID 1, so most venues already have simulation environments. What will change is they will become mandatory. Some venues also provide test symbols in productions, so they probably have to make some slight adjustments, and everyone needs to basically make this in their rules and regulations very clear that this will become mandatory. I think what clearly actually is also said within the RTS, which is a bit contradictory, that is that there should be a clear separation between the test environments and basically live production. When you look at test symbols, that might actually not absolutely be the case, but regardless, it's there. Venues will introduce it, and I think there can be quite a debate about why test symbols might be not so good, or why the simulation environment might not be so good. So this is something that I have to choose. And trading venues right now, they're looking at the requirements, what needs to be done, etc. And also, for example, when it comes to simulation environments, also have something ready when there's a release update, so that they have kind of, I don't know, an advanced simulation or cloud simulation to basically to allow basically members to do the required testing requirements. Considering the time, I think maybe just very quick question. Any questions on this one? Or comments? Thoughts on the difference between test symbols and simulation environment?
One question. You have mentioned about reports, trading exchanges that should provide reports. I mean, can you categorize few reports? I mean, just to understand.
Yeah, it's basically most trading venues already have some of these reports, and it needs to be one concluded report for the member to basically state that they have done the conformance testing, they've run through it. So I think from what we have right now in place, or most venues probably, at least I can speak for Deutsche Börse, have in place, we have several reports, would bring them together so that the requirement will be fulfilled, and that basically will say how you did in your conformance testing then. if that's not the case, so I'll go now to the next point that the gentleman over there pointed out, which is business clock synchronization. So, with regards to business clock synchronization, it's, to be honest, to me, it was like a bit of a topic it's not my preferred expertise or my preferred sort of topic, but it's once you get a little bit into it, it's actually, and when you look what the reasoning behind it is, why it's actually being introduced, it makes quite sense. So basically the idea is that it's very essential to do cross-venue monitoring of orders in order to be able for regulators to detect instances of market abuse. So they need to have a clear comparison of between the transaction and the market conditions that were prevailing at the time of their execution. So as a matter of fact, obviously, the orders received every second is probably higher than the orders basically executed every second. So that might even extend to the fact that several thousands of orders are basically being sent, and that obviously depends also on the mix of the trading participants at the venue, on the venue itself, on the volatility of the financial instrument, the liquidity situation, etc. So if we stick to a time granularity of 1 second, that might not be sufficient any longer for the purposes of basically proper market surveillance, and especially with regards to market abuse. So hence, therefore, the regulator said we need to establish minimum granularity requirements to be able to basically record the date and the time of these reportable events. And the regulator, you always need to basically look in what kind of position they are. They basically want to reconstruct sort of any kind of events that are related to an order throughout the lifetime of the order. And they need to, or they also want to reconstruct that for all, essentially, for all across trading venues to be able really to fulfill their requirement. And hence, the decision was then made to have a common reference time, and also to have a maximum divergence of common reference time that basically then sets certain standards that all the trading participants and also the trading venues need to follow. Besides, also there needs to be an accurate time stamping. You could have obviously 1 millisecond, 1 microsecond, or 1 second, etc. So that makes a huge difference as well. So this is what the level 1 text says. And now ESMA has been looking into what should be the time source be. And the time source will be UTC, I think to which most of the more advanced trading venues already have that in place. GPS systems are satellite systems are also accepted, for example, GPS. You might need to have sort of to document the offset to UTC. This table actually here shows basically what then the maximum divergence of what I was talking on earlier about from UTC will be allowed depending on the trading activity that your company might have, and also, or if you're a trading venue. So if you're a trading venue, for example, and that actually depends on in your gateway to gateway latency, so the round trip time, if that's below 1 millisecond, the accuracy, so the maximum divergence is allowed to be 100 microseconds from UTC, and then you need to have accordingly an accurate timestamp of 1 microsecond, or you can have it better as well. And vice versa, if it's above 1 millisecond, the maximum divergence from UTC are a bit higher with 1 millisecond. Then again, it's classified for HFTs, voice trading, RFQ systems, and any other trading activities. So that's something that needs to be sort of done. And again, the background for this is basically for regulators to basically detect instances of market abuse across venues. Maybe just one more thing before we can have maybe 2 more minutes for questions. I'm sorry, I'm overstretching the time here a little bit. Is one number that you should take home today is from today onwards, you've got 389 days before MiFID II will be implemented. So make the most of it, get your people on board and get things ready. And thank you very much for your attention. So if there are any more questions, I'm happy to answer them now.
So on the timing piece, you mentioned sort of voice trading, and you said one second. When are they thinking of recording that from? Is it from the time the trade is made on the telephone, or is it the time it's entered into the system?
Hold on. You mean the maximum divergence from UTC, or
yeah, exactly that. So you sort of voice trading 1 second.
Very good question. I think it hasn't been more further specified in the RTSs, and to be honest, I've been looking more at what we have to do at the trading venue. We have here the gateway-to-gateway latency, so I'm afraid I can't answer this. If anyone else has any comment on this,
I can only comment that we've been working in the space, and actually the definition. You're quite right. There's a translation at some point from human to capture on the system. Most of the tier ones we talk to feel quite challenged in voice recording their human voice data, because actually it still needs to be recorded to second accuracy, which doesn't sound particularly difficult. Where the nub of the question is it when the trade check done? Is it when he says thanks? Is it when he says tomorrow? You know, it just doesn't. There is no actual definition. So there are probably two areas of gotchas in this whole area, which you've alluded to. One is the reportable event in the terms of the system reportable event, and the other's the reportable event in terms of the voice and what's been done on the phone.
I think at that point, the MiFID doesn't say when you have to do the timestamp. It just says how accurate it has to be. So, and if it's voice training, if you're trained by voice, then you fall into that category, and you don't.
I'm sure when they start to do it, they'll be very intrigued when the thing actually occurs. So
yeah.
I'm sure they'll change their mind when it goes live.
Yeah.
My question is about the same topic. Do you expect, or maybe some people in the audience expect some technical standards or standard products for realizing this accuracy in synchronization of time in different platforms? Because if there are some such strict requirements, so regulator need to check them from time to time. That means that people need to use approved products to demonstrate that they have this in place. So do you expect some maybe solutions which will be approved by regulators for this task or something like that?
Yes, maybe on your first point, I think we will see some more guidelines. So level 3 will come for business clock synchronization. What time, I don't know. And with regards to your point, how will this be checked by regulators? Very good question. I think on all the other items as well, obviously under MiFID. And also, for example, when we refer to the amount of record keeping that everyone needs to do, how they're going to check it, what they're going to do with this, is still a little bit of a black box. I think you need to have a close alignment with your national competent authority to see also what will be transposed into national law. You have obviously the MiFID, which is a directive which gives a bit more leeway, and then you have the strict regulation. And for example, when it comes to business clock synchronization, it's part of the directive. So your national competent authority will transpose that, and they can obviously slightly kind of, have a bit of leeway there. So yeah, very good questions. I think the regulators themselves also just go ready right now to get things done, and how they're going to monitor, how they're going to sort of see what needs to be approved or what needs to be changed. I would expect if people do not follow this table here, then at one point in time, probably not on the 4th of January 2018, but probably any time soon after, the expectation would be that for the regulators to come after their duty, that they would then basically have to say, well, you haven't implemented it, implement it now. Otherwise, MiFID anyway foresees, fines and fees, etc., for non-compliance. Okay, if there are no more questions, then thank you very much. And I know that there are not going to be more MiFID topics right now, and so have a good day, and thank you very much for letting me speak here.